Line's good.
Never on.
Whoa.
Hard. Release.
Come on, Brent. Line's good. Got real close. The hair high, right? Try and hit 2/3.
Have they saved it for her? Yes, they have.
Ooh, welcome to Game of Stones, everybody. I am Sean Graham, out of the dungeon. Scott alongside, as always. Hello, Scott.
Sean, you're sounding so crisp and clear.
Yeah, a little different from last week.
Yeah. Not a new mic, though. You just fixed it.
Yeah, I just had to sort of very gently move the connector piece to the left ever so slightly.
Yes.
But
well, good,
having
good
said that, I'm not going to touch it. Normally I have notes here. I would use my computer to do stuff as we're going. I'm not touching anything.
Okay.
For as long as this takes to do this episode tonight. And then I'll do a more serious investigation there over the weekend. But I am, after we do this, Scott, because there's Prime Day going on. I'm going to see if there's a potential deal. But at least for the moment, everything is in working order over here.
Good. Glad to hear, and literally glad to hear. So, exciting stuff. We've also played a few games ourselves in the curling season. We've had a couple of big events on TV. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm feeling like in the curling spirit. How are you feeling?
Yeah, the same. I agree. The weather has turned here in the nation's capital. The last time we spoke, it was warm outside. It was unseasonably warm, and now it's unseasonably cool. Scott, you're a meteorologist. Where's the seasonable part of this fall? Because we've been above seasonal, below seasonal. So what exactly is seasonal?
I think we got a week of it in between these two podcast recordings where it was like pretty pleasant.
Yeah.
And it really sort of stinks because I like to be able to keep my windows open in my house, right? And I can do it for like 2 weeks in the spring before it gets blisteringly hot and I can't do it anymore. And then the same in the fall. So yeah, I turned the furnace on today, Sean, the first time. And, I was talking to some people throughout the day and I said, I had to turn the furnace on. I wasn't happy. It was like, 17 degrees in the house this morning. So they said, oh yeah, I had to do that 2 days ago. I had to do that 3 days ago. And I was like, okay, well, hopefully we get another little rise and we don't have to keep the furnace on. But yeah, it's feeling like fall, and
it is.
Getting out on the ice for me on Monday it's got me in the mood, feeling it.
Yeah, so that was your first game, first time on the ice, second time for the team. We're now 2-0 on the season for that team, and we have a week off for Thanksgiving coming up on Monday, and then we play and have a bye. So you have a really weird start to the season there, Scott, where you play week off. But I saw you last night as well on Tuesday for our final softball game of the year. And based on what you said, perhaps going game, week off might be a good way for you to start the season.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to sort of ease me into it. I went to the gym too on Monday and did some squats and then went and curled. And then at our softball game, I started warming up and was like, oh, my quads are tight.
Yeah.
Didn't prevent me from giving it all out there on the field, but honestly, the rest is going to be good. So a good way to ease into it, I'd say.
Yeah, we are playing in a spiel during that week off, just a 1-day spiel. Big team. We're going to have at least 6 people on the team, 3 games in 1 day. Maybe we'll even have a 7th or 8th, who knows? But it won't be having to play 3 games, but at least 1, probably 2.
Yeah, probably 2. And get out there and move and feel it at I'll say a lower pressure setting, but I don't find Monday nights very high pressure either. So
yeah, no, it's a very low key environment. And this week there were babies, 2 very cute babies.
Yes.
Twins were there, so that was it's always fun when there's cute babies.
Yes, I was like, I'm interested in talking to everybody after the game, except I need to look at these cute babies do
these
things
very
for a
cute
while.
babies. Yeah. And they were very, very cute. They didn't look that old, just a couple months maybe, but yeah, very, very cute babies. So that's what's been going on with us, Scott. There has been some stuff going on in the world of curling. And as I am wont to do occasionally on this show, I just turn on the recording and don't tell you what I want to talk about.
Yeah. So I like those kind of shows because I don't have to do any prep.
Yeah, so there you go. So first up, Scott, let's talk about the Grand Slam over the weekend. On the men's side, which I thought was slightly less interesting, was Bruce Mouat beating Brad Gushue in the final. Gushue couldn't really get much going. Mouat scores the deuce early, blank, and then Gushue was kind of chasing the whole time. Mouat breaks it open late in the game. So they get the... what was it called? It was the Tour Challenge, right?
The Tour Challenge.
The Tour Challenge. They're your Tour Challenge champions on the Tier 1 side. So congratulations to them, Scott. In addition to winning, this was the first I had seen of, is it Bobby or is it Lammy, who's gone with the bleach blonde look?
Bobby Lammy is the same guy.
Oh, excuse me. Yes. Is it Bobby then who has the...
It might be. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so one of them has gone with that look. So it's quite a change. It's very Joe Burrow-esque actually in what he's going with. So a little stark, surprising. I hadn't seen a photo of that yet. So overall, those guys seem to be in mid-season form. Gushue had a good week as well, coming off of the points bet. So going right from the points bet into the slam. No lag for him, despite having to cross a few time zones there and get out to Charlottetown. Looked like a wonderful facility as well. There where the UPEI Panthers hockey teams play.
Yeah, for sure. It did look like a good facility. Pretty good crowds, like considering it's a small place to begin with. It's October, like there's probably things to do outside. So yeah, I thought it was overall like pretty well supported, looked good on TV. I guess we'll talk maybe about all of that. Sort of all of the changes. We talked briefly at the end of our episode last week, but it was good curling. It was nice to be able to stream it. And overall a good time.
Yeah, and then on the women's side, Rachel Homan and Carrie Anderson play in the final. Rachel Homan was in control of this game. Sixth end, she flashes an open hit wide and then turns a hit in, and Carrie Anderson gets the steal. That changes the game around to the point where Carrie Anderson forces in 7. That gives Anderson the lead. Force in 7, and then Anderson, gets the single in the 8th. For the win. Scott, this is one of those games where certainly the first half through to that 6th end, Team Homan outplayed Team Anderson, and it's 2 misses there at the end. And, we joke all the time or I don't know if it's even a joke, that, you want your name on the team. You kind of get all the credit, but you also get some of the blame. And really that game turned on 2 Rachel Homan shots that you don't expect her to miss. She wasn't sharp better than most, but in the 8th end, her 2 shots, she didn't quite get them where she wanted to, and it gave Carrie Anderson an easier shot. If Rachel makes a roll 2 feet or so to the left as she throws it, the right from the perspective of who's in the house, Carrie Anderson has to make a pretty hard draw. So, just little things there for Rachel Homan. She also missed a draw at one point in the game for, I think, an extra point. And it was her first draw. I think she didn't throw a draw until the 5th end or something. So just little things that you don't expect from her, little hiccups. So I do think that even though Carrie Anderson and that team won the game, overall, I would say Team Homan carried the play.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think when you think about the way that they've sort of dictated the play all year, it's not much different. It is just, as you say, that sort of one end with a steal of 2. And, we talk a lot about the skips deuce. can go the other way too, right? The anti-skip stews where it happened to us on our game on Monday where I missed a hit on my last and he got 2 like kind of out of nowhere. So it happens. And for a team that's as good as Carrie Anderson, that's like kind of all that they need to be able to, slam the door shut.
Yep, absolutely. So those were the Tier 1 events. Of course, there are Tier 2 events here at the Tour Challenge. Rylan Kleider and his team win on the men's side. Christina Black wins on the women's side. So they will get entries into the next Grand Slam event, which is the Masters, I think, next month in Alberta, if I'm not mistaken. The only West Coast or Grand Slam not in Eastern or Atlantic time this year is the one there in Alberta. So congratulations to Rylan Kleider and Christina Black on those wins. I think those are 2 teams, Scott, that we haven't seen Rylan Kleider at a Briar yet. They've come close in the Saskatchewan Tankard. Christina Black, of course, has had some success at a Scotty. She's made the playoffs there. So congratulations to them. Those were pretty good fields in the Tier 2 and getting some guaranteed spots in the next slam. See if they can get some success there and maintain that place. It'll be tough for both of them, but to beat the best, you got to play the best.
Yeah, and you got to be there to get the chance to do it, right? So good on them for advancing out of there. Ryan Kleider's team, I think, has been pretty hot this year. Curling Zone is not cooperating with me right now, but definitely one of these young teams that are on the rise.
Yes. So, Scott, you mentioned the streaming part of this. There was another thing related to the broadcast that wanted to mention. Joan McCusker has retired, and Jennifer Jones is taking the permanent spot in the booth. Just as a side note, by the way, just the way the arena was set up, when they were on whatever sheet it was on Saturday for the features, you had Kevin Martin in the Kathy spot, right? So when Kathy's just doing the updates, she's not in the booth with them. So Kevin Martin was out of the booth doing the updates, but they gave him like a 5th graders type desk and looks like a 5th graders type chair. And he was just sitting there with his cup of coffee there, just sort of looking around. And he was in the shot so many times, unknown, just sitting there doing his thing. It was hilarious to see.
Yeah, that's that is pretty funny.
Yeah. But Joan is out. Jennifer Jones is in for these broadcasts. Scott, I like Joan McCusker. I always thought she was pretty good. I do kind of lament the fact that the Sportsnet crew are all skips now, that they don't have someone to offer the front end perspective. I think that's one of the reasons Joanne Courtney has been so good on TSN is that she has that, and she's gotten, I think, a lot better since she started. Again, we've talked about it. I don't think CBC put her in a good spot for the Olympics in Korea.
Yeah.
And Kathy, of course, has that front end perspective and experience as well. So that I'm not crazy about for the Sportsnet broadcast. I think Jennifer Jones is very good, and she's a very good broadcaster, but I would like somebody who can talk about sweeping maybe on that broadcast.
Yeah. And to me, that's something that we saw when Cheryl Bernard came into the booth. Right away, it was sort of, oh, there's all these skips now and they can't make jokes like the way that Ray used to make jokes, at the expense of Linda. So you're right. That is a bit top heavy. There are definitely good curling broadcast candidates who are not skips, but at the same time, Sportsnet is never going to say, oh, Jennifer Jones, like, sorry, we're not going to take your perspective because you didn't sweep. So they're kind of in this place of like, obviously we're going to give her this opportunity. Like you say, she is quite polished on the broadcast already. And that's just from doing reps and reps and reps for 20 years of interviews and being around the production. The media training helps too. So it's all part of it. I think where it's maybe a bit more interesting is on the streaming broadcasts, which I don't know if you're ready to get to that.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get right into it. So we mentioned last week that the Grand Slam is streaming all of the draws now. For Tuesdays and Wednesdays, there's going to be a feature game or feature like crew, and then the other games will also be available. But the crew for those games are Robbie Doherty and John Cullen.
Yeah, with occasional drop-in guests is how it's been billed. And this week they had Chelsea Carey for at least one of them.
Nice.
And this is really good. I think John is quite polished, has done quite a bit of broadcasting on the BC circuit, like doing some of the Canadian junior stuff too. Like he's a stand-up comedian and a podcaster sort of by reputation and trade, I guess. I'm sure he does other things too that I just don't know as much about, but yeah, he's quite good on the broadcast. And Chelsea Carey is somebody that we've pegged as
should be great,
having a future in the broadcasting side of the sport. So it's good to see her getting reps here with them. Robbie Doherty too has been like, to me, when I've seen him doing player interviews or on the mic, like kind of a breath of fresh air. He's asking questions that aren't rote. He's getting interesting answers from the players. I think his rapport with them is strong.
Yep.
So I've really liked it. And I'm very excited to see this, how it evolves. And honestly, if it had been on an app, like on YouTube, then I would have just watched that instead of the Sportsnet broadcast this weekend.
Yeah. So I should note too, Brent Lang and Tyler George are part of the ongoing crew as well. So they're part of this. There is an app that they announced. There's the Grand Slam of Curling app. I saw the announcement for this after the event had started. So I haven't downloaded it and I haven't tried to watch anything through it, but presumably you should be able to do that. Scott, this was free this weekend, and the only thing that the Grand Slam of Curling has posted is that the games are in, let me just make sure I get this right. GOC's streaming channel is currently in free preview. So that would indicate that at some point they are going to charge for this, and people will have to pay. And if I'm Sportsnet, I'm thinking, yeah, of course, it should be a paid service because we're a paid service. So there is that side of it. But what got me thinking, Scott, is that I got a note today from the World Curling Federation announcing that there is a season pass for the 2024-2025 season on the World Curling streaming channel, on the Curling channel.
Okay.
So the Curling channel is a dedicated streaming platform for live and on-demand curling coverage. The platform launched in January 2024. So let me give you the price. Let me give you what this is. So your events include the World Mixed Curling Championship 2024, which I believe is either started or is about to start. Yeah. Sean Meacham is skipping Team Canada there. One of my favorite players of all time stylistically. Just watch his feet when he throws. It's great. The Pan-Continental Curling Championship, A division only, which is coming up in 6 weeks or so, 5-6 weeks. The Women's World Curling Championship, the Men's World Curling Championship, the World Junior Curling Championships, and the World Mixed Doubles Curling Championship. So for their pricing on this, a la carte, the mixed is $9.99. The World Mixed Doubles is $14.99. The Pan-Continental $19.99. And all the World Championships for men's, women's, and juniors, $24.99. So all of that put together, a la carte would be, I don't know, 130, $40 or something in that range. You can get all 7 events for $99.99 a USD. So that is the offer from the World Curling Federation. Now, we just had the streaming through the Grand Slam of Curling for free. They will charge for this at some point. But what I wanted to talk about, Scott, and if Ryan's listening, my apologies. I know you love talking about streaming, and if I had more time to produce this, I would have called you in. But how much would you pay for these streaming events, and what is the price point at which streaming curling is a viable option for you as the consumer?
So this is a really good question, because it's not for me at the point at which I am in my life. The price point is not as important as the ease of access.
Yep.
Right. So for me, if things are available on YouTube or on another iOS app that I can load up on my Apple TV,
yep,
or my Roku, PS4, 3, 4. What do I have? Something old, like
now
some
you're
kind of
just bragging, dude. Stop. You don't just list all the devices. Yeah.
Okay, but like honestly, if it's something that I have to open my laptop to do,
no,
I'm much less likely to do it,
right?
than if it's something that's available to stream directly on my screen. Maybe that's because I'm a million years old now, but for me, that's it. And so if I have that option to do it, I think this is like the right price point for me for a whole season.
$100 for the year.
And if I can get every game,
yep,
of those world championships, because what I've done in the past is when I watch the world championships with the recast, and you have to get sort of the tokens,
yes,
right? So I'll start to watch one game and then be like, oh, that's really interesting what's happening on the other sheet. I want to go over there. But then I have to pay again separately for that specific game. It's not just buying the draw. And so that flexibility that season pass sort of thing allows me is really, really nice, because what, like, I pay for a game and then it's over in 6 ends.
Yeah.
Shoot, now I got to go pay for another one. So the idea of having like an event where I get access to everything is pretty good. When you listed them all individually, I would have thought it would be less, to be honest.
Okay.
Because, like, I don't know who's paying $20 to watch the Pan Continental curling championship. Frankly,
me neither. Yeah, me neither.
And the Euro was not included in that, was it? I don't think you listed it.
I don't remember listing it. No. It could be because the Euro has certain, but if they're giving me those prices in American dollars, presumably it's for an American audience.
You would think, right? And
but
so,
let me look.
I mean, yeah. So when you package it all together and you think about how many hours of content, in theory, it could be, then it seems kind of about right. For an event, I would say like between $10 and $20 makes sense. Getting it to 25, I would be a bit less likely to shell for that. Okay. Personally.
All right. So yes, if I didn't say the Euros are included in this, also at $20. So the Euros and the Pan Continental are the same price. That seems off to me, if I'm being honest, in terms of those two events and the stature of those two events. So put them together, rounding up. The World Mixed at 10, Euros 20 is 30, Pan Cont 20 is 50. The Women's Worlds at 25, and then so 75, that's 125, and the World Mixed Doubles. So 140 if you're buying this a la carte for all these events.
Okay. So, I mean, yeah, like the season pass makes some financial sense if you're somebody like us who are podcasting about curling. Yeah. If you're a very interested fan that wants to see an event at which your particular team is not going to get conventional TV coverage, definitely a good way to spend your money
for sure.
And we've seen like the World Curling broadcasts be pretty good.
Yeah, they are really good. You got Rona.
So I mean, if the production quality is there, then the price point makes sense for me. Where it doesn't make sense is if you want to try and grow the game. But I'm just picturing or hearing Ryan in my head saying, well, Scott, like nobody's streaming something by accident, which is true.
That's true. Yep. And I think that's even part of the problem, though. Like, I think you're more likely to stumble on something on a free platform like YouTube. The algorithm can push stuff to people, and maybe you stumble on it. But anything behind a paywall, no one's stumbling on. And I think that's one of the challenges with these sports that are more marginal, and that they're not destination for a lot of people. They're destination for some folks for sure, but sports that, college football, they can put on ESPN Plus, certain schools, because people are going to go to it because they're like, there's enough people to justify that. The NFL, NBA, maybe baseball in certain markets, hockey in some markets as well. But otherwise it's hard. Like I do get the sense that the MLS with Apple has killed a lot of the momentum of the league. I mean, it's great that Messi is there and he might draw numbers, but for other teams, it seems like it has just zapped some interest being behind that paywall and having to go and find it. So I don't know. I struggle with some of this, especially for, World Championship. I get it. Like men's, women's, juniors, but even the juniors, I'm kind of like, really, like, give the kids the exposure, give the sport the exposure, and like get people interested. Same thing with the mixed doubles, like those ones, I think almost have to be lost leaders for you. That these are ways that you can get people interested in the sport, get eyes on the sport. And then if you say your men's, women's 4-person world championships or your pinnacle events, put those behind a paywall, fine. But put some of these other ones in a place where people can find it. Give it to people where they are, would be what I would want as a fan to help grow the sport.
And I think we see it during the Olympics, right? Where a lot of people watch Olympic curling because they're tuning in to watch Olympics whatever, and it's on or it's available, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's very hard to package these kinds of things around huge events like the Olympics that only happen every 4 years because they only happen every 4 years.
Yeah.
But there is like, I don't know, there is something to the idea that if you put it on, like, people will watch it and people like it, right? Yes. Every 4 years, people are like, oh, have you seen this curling? This is so fun.
Yeah.
So, it's not going to be on NBC in prime time, but that's not how most people watch TV now, I would say.
No, so
for sure. We should do a full episode on this and dig in, talk to somebody who knows a little more what they're talking about than us just spouting off. But I think it's positive for us to be able to access this and dive a little deeper with these events.
Yeah, I think that's one of the issues too, is that we all want more access to the games. We want to be able to see more games, but there's a cost associated with showing us more games. So we have to be willing to pay for it if we want those extra games. The other thing I think for people in Canada is that TSN has shown some of the Euros in the past. They don't have anything on their website right now about whether they're going to show the Euros, but they have in the past at least shown semifinals and finals. They'll show some of the Canadian games of the Pan-Continental, not all of them, and they'll show the playoffs of the Pan-Continental as well. So, and men's and women's world championship. So from a Canadian perspective, this might not have the value for us. Like, we might be better off in Canada just doing, say, the Euros a la carte if TSN isn't going to show any of it, right? That's some value there because we're going to get other things. But if you're in the US, that is a pretty good price compared to a la carte. And around the world, certainly different countries have different access to the various events. So, you'd want to look up, depending on where you are, what, if for those in Japan, what NHK has, what Eurosport has, or whatever. I'm not sure what it's on in the various countries in Europe, but those things now you kind of want to do the research on, well, what do I currently have? What is going to be on those stations? And is this going to be of value? So it's a little more work for the consumer, for the curling fan, but yes, we do have more access than we used to.
Yeah. And just looking at the site a little more, there are event passes, like you mentioned, the cost for those events, but there's also day passes where you can watch all games from a day, or draw passes where you can watch all the events from a draw, which is what I was talking to you a little bit about the problem before, where I would pay for one particular game and then have to pay again for a separate one to switch over. So enabling those options are good. And another thing that I really like about this is that the replays are always available. So for you and me, when we want to talk about a game, it's really helpful to be able to go back and then watch it again and say, okay, let's really think about what happened in this end, and that kind of thing. So it's good. It does note too, though, that there may be local broadcast restrictions that might black out certain games or events in different countries. So
right. So if it's on CSN, you won't be able to stream.
Yeah, or get a VPN. It'll be fine.
You can do that too. Yeah, they're big business in VPNs. So yeah. So
this episode brought to you by not yet.
Whoever wants to give us money. So there you go, Scott. One other thing I wanted to talk about is a similar state of the sport type thing. We talked about Jacques Gauthier being released or cut by Team Kevin Koe. It was announced, I believe yesterday, or at least I saw it yesterday, that Aaron Slaczynski is going to step in. He is going to throw the second stone, but he is going to be in the house when Kevin Koe throws. So Tyler Tardy is going to have to sweep 6 rocks. And then now, certainly not unprecedented for the person who's throwing third to not be in the house. A lot of folks have done that.
He was doing that this year already. Jacques had been in the house. For the early events.
All right. So there you go. So Tyler Tardy is getting his sweeping in. This does surprise me in the sense that Aaron Slaczynski is the defending Alberta champion with Jeremy Hardy. Kyle Daring joined that team this year, is new after Kerr Drummond stepped away. So Scott, what I wonder about, with the exception of Darren Moulding, I can't remember something like this, where there was a change in season in this way. And the Darren Moulding situation has been litigated to death, but different in that it was after the trials. So the trials happen, and then basically everything after the trials is kind of, it's just shuffling around. And I think people like going to the Briar and the Scotties mostly because it's a networking opportunity to see what all the other teams are doing, more so than a serious competition. I mean, teams still want to win and all that, but it is after the Olympics, and it's not as big in an Olympic year. So the timing of this is different. I don't want this to be, with all due respect to Woj and Shams and all those newsbreakers, I don't want Woj bombs in the world of curling in season, right? Like, we can have our fun in the spring and the summer. I don't want this to set a precedent. And I don't know if the Moulding situation did, but I don't think I like this. And this is not to be critical of Aaron Slaczynski. I do not blame him for 1 second. As he said, if Kevin Koe calls you, you kind of got to go. So, and I don't know what happened with Jacques Gauthier. I'm not in those rooms. I'll leave it to those guys. And it seems like, from everything that's been made public, it was fine. Like, I'm sure Jacques Gauthier is not thrilled, but it just didn't work. So, I don't mean to be critical, but I don't want the sport to become like a rumor mill in season, right? I want the games to be the games. And this is something that about professional sports that has kind of turned me off a little bit. I know people love the Woj bombs and stuff. But for me, it's like no one talks about the games. It feels like in a lot of these pro sports, they talk about the transactions, and even in season, it's like where's somebody going in the summer, or who's going to win the championship next year. Like, why don't we talk about who's going to win the championship this year and the games that are going on? And that, I don't want curling to turn into that. And maybe I'm just overreacting on this one-off strange situation, but that's something that when I heard that it was Slachinski coming in, made me just wonder and kind of extrapolate out, does this mean something bigger for the sport? Hey everyone, Future Sean here. We recorded this on Wednesday night before news came on Thursday that EJ Harnden and Team Gushue were going their separate ways. Based on the press release, this was done amicably and was a mutual decision. No word as of me recording this who will step in and play second for Team Gushue or what is next for EJ Harnden. But another change mid-season for a top team. A little surprising for defending Brier champions, in my opinion, to make that change this early into a season. But as we talk about with the Kevin Koe and Aaron Slachinski situation, this is now seemingly part of the sport. So a bit of a surprise on both these fronts, and everything that I'm saying here about the Koe Slachinski changes that are made to those two teams, I kind of feel the same way here about the news that broke on Thursday as well. So we'll talk more about this once there is an announcement about who will come in that second position for Brad Gushue and where EJ Harnden will play the rest of the year. But just wanted to acknowledge that there was this other piece of news that came out after we recorded this. So with that, let's get back to Pass Sean and Pass Scott.
That's interesting. I hear what you mean when it comes to 24/7 rumor cycle. I've been like on Pro Football Rumors being like, who can the Bills trade for as a receiver to help their poor quarterback? But yeah, I think what is the difference is that in pro sports, the teams are going to be the teams, right? And when your team sucks, you got to have something to talk about. Right. Whereas in curling, if your team sucks, they're just not going to be around.
Yeah.
Right. So the difference is that if you have a team that's a high profile team that has performed in the past, because that's how you become a high profile team, having a tough start to the year. We saw Koe last year at the Brier really struggle with that foursome together. I think we even said at the start of the year, like, we'll see how this goes. And I was very interested to see how they would rebound. And now we've seen, they're pulling the plug a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think it's less likely to happen in a sport like curling, where you do have to be a performing team to really be in the news. So we're a little shielded from that perspective.
Right.
At the same time, I don't think we're going to see like tons and tons and tons of changes, because it is so important for you all to play together. It's not like baseball, which is really an individual sport happening within the context of a team sport, right? It's pitcher versus batter. And then we all just sort of string these individual matchups together and hope for the team outcome that we want.
Sure.
In curling, it is like super important for communication to be on, for the team to be meshing well, both on and off the ice, given the amount of time they spend together. So I'm less worried about it in curling than you, but I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, because I hate to be in a situation where we're coming out of the Grand Slam or we're going into the quarterfinals or the semifinal wraparound coverage of the slams, and it's like, all right, let's go over to Robbie Doherty. And yeah, Rob, hearing down here that we have a trade after those quarterfinal games. Team Jacobs is sending Ben Hebert and a broom to be named later. Like I don't like that's the world I don't really want to live in. 3-4 weeks after the World Championship or after the players, like that's good.
Yeah, and I think we're the bigger risk to that is the agency of the players being reduced by national programs forming teams for you. Right. So in that case, it could be like, oh, Curling Canada's decided to remove such and such player and replace them with somebody else for the remainder of the season. And in that case, I could be worried a bit more about that. As long as the players have the agency to form their own teams, manage their own schedules and careers and stuff, I think it's okay. But that's a risk that comes with greater professionalization of the game.
Yeah. And who knows what the result of that is going to be, because I think with Scottish curling on the men's side, you got Mowat, Craik, and Ross White. So you got those three teams on the men's side that are really good. And certainly the Scottish system works very different from the way it works in Canada, that individuals do have to get into that program. But at this point, those three teams are really good. Like, do you really want to break any of them up or try to make the super team and say you're the best out of these 12 guys, or just let them play against each other? Because that's really fun. Like, watching those games is really great. So it's this weird balance of wanting to, the national bodies wanting to have teams at the international level that can compete and win. But at the same time, for a national organization, if you can put on great events that are entertaining, that's cool too, right? So
iron sharpens iron, right?
That's right. So yeah, that the addition of Aaron Sluchinski, and again, I don't comment on it. I don't want to be commenting specifically on that, because again, I don't blame anybody, and I don't mean to be critical of anybody. It just made me wonder about, is this a foreshadowing potentially of what could come for transactions in the sport and moving them from the spring to a year-round potential?
Yeah, fair enough. Good discussion. I'm interested to hear what the listeners have to say about that. That's
So
good thought experiment.
Yeah, so certainly let us know what you think about that. Let us know what you think the value of streaming is monetarily to you. Is the $100 US for those 7 events something that you'd be interested in? Would you go a la carte? Would you say, well, see what your schedule is on a day-to-day basis, maybe do a draw here, day here, depending on what you got going on? Let us know, and let us know if you watched the Grand Slam stream. Matt Brower did an article on the first day. Overall, it seemed to go well, except for a couple of technical hiccups, but that happens. So certainly we will keep our eyes on that moving forward. And if you want to keep up with what we got going on the show, please do subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Likes, rates, comments, all that good stuff helps other people find the show, keeps us growing. Head on over to GameOfStonesPod.com. All past episodes are there, plus a link to the merch. In terms of past episodes, do check out last week, where we talked about the wonderful book, Curling for Beginners and Improvers. Check it out. Really enjoyed that conversation, and check out the book. Links in the description for that. So do check it out. Great book there for people who are new to the game, improving in the game, or just even if you've been playing a while, some good tips in there on strategies for practicing and in-game strategies, and just a lot of great stuff in that book. So check it out. And as always, if you want to let us know what you want to hear on the show, GameOfStonesPodcast@gmail.com. We're on the socials at Game of Stones Pod, except Facebook, where it's Game of Stones Podcast. Scott, today was a very good day for me. Don't want to sort of necessarily bore everybody, but what was scheduled that would have been a great hindrance to my professional life has been canceled. And I am very thrilled by this. I felt very bad for the people who have worked very, very hard on the project. And I made a point to go over to the person who had been leading the project to say, I understand how frustrating it is when something gets pulled out of no fault of his or his team, but just got shut down by an external force. And I feel bad for them. And I wanted to acknowledge all the work that was done and all the support that was given to us. But I also was very pleased. It's been a good day.
Good. It's one of those good days. I had a good day yesterday too, where I sort of got some affirmation for the direction in which I've been leading my team. And it's one of these things where you're down sort of in the weeds every day, doing the work. And when you stick your head up and sort of take stock of everything that you've done, you're kind of like, oh, I hope this is in the right way. And to get some affirmation was really, really positive for me yesterday. So I encourage everybody out there, seek some affirmation and take stock of what you're doing. Like take time to lift your head up from the grunt work, so to speak, and think like, oh yeah, I've done a lot. Like this is pretty good.
Yeah. Validation, Holmes.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully everyone out there is having a good week as well. And yes, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there in Canada. Do celebrate safely if you are celebrating. If you're having a few, arrange a way home, all that stuff. Be safe and responsible with your celebrating. And for those of you who are not in Canada, have yourselves a lovely October weekend. We'll be back with you next week to talk a little more curling. But until then, keep those brooms on the ice and don't dump that intern.
Make the final.